Hello, and welcome back to Witch on the Holy Night. My name is Maybe Dennis, and last time we went to the archives to do what chapter called Martha. Here we kind of just honestly found out more about the bird, the blue bird, the blue robin, and there was a story about, I think it was called carrier pigeons, or passenger pigeons, that we had with a new character, or not a new character, we saw them before, but we spoke with Kumari, who is a previous co-worker of Sojiro. And, well, she just talked about how, it's kind of lonely being the last of a species or a race. We talked about the passenger pigeons, and then it was kind of sad, to be honest. But afterwards, he went back and talked with the blue bird, Robin, and then just kind of found out a little bit more about Alice as well. It was definitely a side story. It wasn't really too much, but there were definitely some funny parts. But now we're going to continue with the main story. Are you for real? Yes I am. Well, chapter 8. Are you for real? Misaki High School's winter vacation began in mid-December. The tranquil air of the school was a refreshing change to the pace from the more competitive schools and their nationally famous sports teams and exam-oriented curriculum. The empty, newly constructed building evoked images of a pure white swan descending upon a still winter lake. The modern school building felt alive in its stillness, in spite of the absence of its lifeblood of students. Most students never knew what this building used to look like. It was just a small, rundown wooden building, a shadow of its former self. The former school was never torn down and now stood in lonely silence. It was tucked away deep in a seemingly infinite wood that stretched across the mountains. The sound of the brooms sweeping dead leaves resonated in the air. The ocean of leaves had accumulated into piles as big as sand dunes. Sweeping was a futile venture at this point. An ominous feeling lingered in the air, perhaps the result of 2 years of abandonment. Cleaning the insides of the building alone would take more than a few days to finish. Not to mention, it's gonna be Sojiro. Oh wait! Oh! I completely forgot about this because it happened so long ago. But in one of the school moments, they were talking about picking quote-unquote volunteers to help out at the certain building. I forgot. I think it was an old school building or something. It must be what we're talking about. It honestly hasn't happened in so long that I legit completely forgot about it. I was too focused on the Night of Witches. Of course it's Hosuke. The misguided youth sent here for the job was wasted no time making it clear that he wanted no part in the beautification efforts. Hosuke Kinomi continued to mumble and grumble to himself as he reluctantly swept away at the ground. Meanwhile, Sojiro silently and swiftly continued his sweeping, glaring at Kinomi out of the corner of his eye. Are you for real? Just do your work and shut up. Kinomi went back to idly swing his broom without even glancing over at Sojiro. Mornings on the mountain were cold. There was no hint of sun in the cloudy sky above. Ash-gray light illuminated the rear courtyard. The sharp cold of midwinter pierced through everyone's gloves as if they did not exist. A day like this was best spent indoors under warm blankets, but for some reason, they were out here cleaning. The Special Winter Cleaning Team. That was a name given to this elite force sent to clean up this dilapidated, overgrown mountain. The other students had put their faith into this team to fulfill this beautification mission, respecting them for their sacrifice. The reality, however, was that this was nothing more than a ragtag, dare-losing gang of students needing remedial lessons before their exams. They were the victims of a year-long arm-twisting scheme by the student council. Ugh, disgusting. Who in their right mind would come out here to sweep up leaves with a blizzard looming on the horizon? I do remember they said that there was one volunteer, and I bet that was Sojiro. Other than one of the 40 assembled, none of them have any semblance of interest in the task at hand.
赤羽たち向こうで焼き芋とかレトロな真似してやがる。
What is this, the 50s or something?
な、2番戦時はいかにも頭悪いしな。そうだ、俺たちはイカでも焼かねえ？
Definitely using their skills that they learned at the Mad Bear, cooking up a storm. Kinomi did not want to be here to begin with, and was constantly trying to break Sojiro. Is trying to break Sojiro into joining him. The cleaning squad was divided into groups. Sojiro and Kinomi were in charge of cleaning the area behind the gymnasium. Sojiro was the leader of the platoon, and Kinomi was the grunt.
ああ、こことあっちの垣根をきれいにしたら、焼き芋だろうと焼きイカだろうと猫鍋だろうと好きにしよう。そ
Oh,
の頃にはちょうどお昼だ。
it's a new outfit. Look at that. I definitely would have skipped it if I wasn't too busy looking at Sojiro. Sojiro said as he expertly packed his swept leaves into the trash bags. 2 hours had passed since they assembled on this foggy morning at 7 o'clock. Ugh! While everyone else chatted and laughed as they worked, Sojiro alone had worked in complete silence at the same blistering pace since he started. The sheer amount of work he put in was likely the only thing keeping him from complaining of the cold in his thin jersey.
なあ、やめようぜ。見ろ、そこの池、スケートリンク。やっぱ池？とにかくそこの池らしきものだってカチカチに凍ってるぐらいなんだぜ。
Dude, it's frozen. Let's go skating.
こんな雪原じゃ人体は普通動かねえよ。機械伯爵でもなきゃだよ。そろそろ人間狩りが始まるよ。
We're not gonna start eating each other up because I am a robot. I don't need sustenance from humans.
なんでいい加減休憩しね。
Come on, come on.
せっかく枯葉集めたんだから燃やして温まんないとさ。どうせ監視役は殿下しかいないんだしさ。なあ、焼きイカやろうぜ。焼きイカ。
Please. Oh man, I just had a really stupid thought. I was like, in order to get rid of all these leaves, why don't they just burn everything? I'm like, oh right, that's how they have forest fires. Okay, but that might not be the reason, but it's not gonna be a smart thing to do. For some reason, Kinomi was droning about his squid. For some reason, Kinomi was droning about his squid. Sojiro had managed to withstand the barrage of complaints from his comrade, but even he was reaching his limit.
木の実、頼むから。
Oh, Tobimaru is here too. Just then, Sojiro saw the Grim Reaper himself creeping behind Kinomi. In his hands, he held a rake instead of a soft bamboo broom. Oh no.
いいぜ。お前がイカなんてもんを用意してるほどの大人物だってんなら、慎んでイカ焼きぐらい許可してやるよ。
I haven't seen him so long.
こっちで用意してやろう。
It's been so long since we've seen Tobimaru. Part of me is kind of curious whether or not he'll be involved in all the manic shenanigans, because Sojiro did tell him about it before he had his lips sealed. Kinomi shot to attention at the voice behind him.
その物言い、築地何がし。
Before quickly turning around, swinging his broom in the process. Oh no. Tobimaru easily blocked the swing with his rake.
ああ、てめえ、やる気十分じゃねえか。溢れる労働意欲を抑えきれないってわけか。
More work for you now.
シベリアコースにでも行っちまうか。
女ども集めて焼却炉に陣取ってる野郎の言葉なんざ聞かねえよ。真冬に南国気分とかマジ寒いわ。
Both boys glared at each other with a wry smile. Broom and rake locked in embrace. These two were only friendly with each other on school grounds.
飛び丸、一応彼は戦力なんだから邪魔しないでくれ。
Both of them scoffed angrily and put away their weapons. They both knew better than to argue with Sojiro, the only one cleaning with a garbage bag in hand.
それで何しに来たんだ飛び丸。君はあったかい焼却炉の前で永遠に火の管理をすると豪語していたんじゃなかったっけ。
A harsh comment. Apparently, even Sojiro had a slight taste for drama.
なんてこった。善良な生徒ですら俺をそんな目で見るのか。
Tobimaru seemed sad at Sojiro's observation. But as long as Tobimaru continued to claim that he was helping the girls by doing nothing more than standing in front of a pile of burning leaves, Sojiro found it hard to sympathize.
いいから要件を言えよ。 殿下と違って俺らは暇じゃねえんだ。
ああ、そうかよ。宗次郎、そろそろ小休止だ。向こうで温まろうよ。
Only you, Sojiro.
お、なんだブレイクかよ。話せるじゃん殿下。
ああ、てめえは除外に決まってんだろ。特権は功労者にのみ与えられるもんだ。
Knew it.
焼却炉の前に来たけりゃ、それ相応の貢ぎ物を持ってきやがれ。具体的に言うと、リアカー1台分のゴミ袋な。
ひっで生徒会応募。
I remember what it's like to still have rights. Kinomi's complaints naturally fell on deaf ears. Tobimaru had been selected to lead the cleaning operation, and his word was final. If Kinomi were to continue to push his buttons, he knew he would be on the cleaning duty tomorrow and the next day too.
さあ、行くぞ。誰の趣味か知らねえが、なぜか知る子の感が山ほどあってな。中華まんの一つでもあった方が気が利くってもんなんだがね。あれか、遭難用のチョコレートみたいなもんか。
I'm just imagining all the cans were those expired, potentially expired cans that Hosuke brought to lunch.
たく、あいつの考えは未だにわかんねえな。
Sojiro reassured Tobimaru by saying that he thought the food would do just fine for everyone.
なんだよ、行かねえのか、宗次郎。
ああ、自分はここに残るよ。旦なら木の実の言うように葉を燃やせばいい。そこに池もある。火の始末なら安心だ。
This was clearly for Kinomi's benefit. Tobimaru furrowed his brow while Kinomi shivered from the cold.
俺は今友情ってもんを実感している。すげえな。真心って本当にあったんだ。くそ、待ってろしずき。今赤羽たちから芋を奪ってくる。
And we never saw him again, at least not here. Perhaps shy to show off his true feelings, Kinomi ran off to the neighboring group.
な、予想はしてたけどな。ほらよ。
Tobimaru pulled out a hot can from his jersey pocket, scratching his head in exasperation. He pulled out 3 in all, 1 from each jersey pocket and 1 from his pants pocket.
さっさと焚き火の用意をしようぜ。俺もこっちで休むことにするわ。
付き合いがいいのはお互い様だな。
Sojiro quickly prepared the leaves for the fire, carefully gathering them up for them to burn neatly.
慣れてるな。
Did you know I'm from the mountains?
マッチがあるから楽なんだ。
Sojiro crouched down in front of the burning leaves and warmed his hands near the flames. Even though he showed no signs of being cold, underneath it all, Sojiro was cold too. He gazed into the fire as the smoke rose from the pile of leaves, as if remembering the good times from his past. Tobimaru felt a touch of concern as he looked at Sojiro. He saw within him homesickness and retrospection. He also saw a dark shadow looming over him, like a stranger in a foreign land without a home.
元気ねえな、宗次郎。
まあね、少し疲れてる。
悩み事なら相談に乗るぜ。気が向いたら話してくれ。
Tobimaru continued speaking with a pull tab from the can of sweet red bean soup still around his index finger. Sojiro was focused on the fire.
そういえばな、お前が学校休んでる時、青崎に殴られたぜ。俺は大ボラ吹きだそうだ。
Tobimaru no baka!
すごいな。大抜擢じゃないか。
Congratulations. Sometimes Sojiro would reply incoherently like this. Tobimaru chalked it up to cultural differences.
なあ、青崎とはどうなってんだ？テスト前は駅まで一緒に帰ってただろ？うまくいってんのか？あれから。
It was obvious to everyone that was far from the case, yet Tobimaru asked anyways.
ああ、今は一緒に住んでるよ。
He's like, what? Sojiro went with a truthful, blunt response.
ああ、そうか。一緒と来たか。
Tobimaru tried to laugh off Sojiro's all too casual confession. However,
一緒に住んでるぞ。
どうした飛び丸？火でも飛んだか？
飛んでねえし、
それより怖え。おい、今の聞き捨てならねえたわごとは本当の話か？
Sojiro protested. Tobimaru's reply was silence.
その余裕マジか。女に興味なさそうな顔しててやることやってんじゃないかてめえ。
No, that's not how it is. I'm shacked up with two. And it's not as good as you think it is. Tobimaru had always felt that he and Sojiro were an equal match, strength-wise, but for some reason, he could not shake the feeling that Sojiro was now superior in the brain department. Sojiro cast a rare, angry glare into Tobimaru's direction.
こっちこそ聞き捨てならない。なんだ、その女に興味はないってのは。
Sojiro seemed genuinely angry, and his voice was icy. This uncharacteristic level of anger from Sojiro was enough to get Tobimaru to back down.
いや、悪い。そんな雰囲気あったんだよ、お前さんは。けどよ、青崎と一緒に住んでるってどういうことだ？いくらなんでも一足飛びすぎだろ。
There were certain circumstances, let's just say that.
別に君が期待しているようなことはない。彼女が住んでいるところの部屋を借りることになっただけだ。屋根の裏にある部屋なんだけど、板張りで山小屋を思い出すんで気に入ってる。
Tobimaru did not bat an eyelid at hearing that Sojiro now lived in an attic and continued his questioning.
屋敷ってあのクオンジの屋敷か？それこそまさかだぜ。宗十郎、お前一体どんな手品を使いやがった？
What kind of wizard? You don't want to know about magic, man. Please stay away.
飛び丸こそあの家を知ってるのか？
そりゃな。これでも月次家期待の跡取り候補だぜ、俺は。クオンジグループのご令嬢が住んでる屋敷ぐらいは知ってるさ。霊園女学院の2年生だろ、確か。
Yep.
クオンジ何？
Sojiro was looking more confused than ever, so Tobimaru reluctantly explained everything as simply as he could so Sojiro could understand.
クオンジグループつうか財団だな。
They did say that they own, the entire city, this land.
平たく言えば一族全部がお金持ちで仲良く会社を経営してる連中だと思えばいい。複合企業とまではいかないが輸出業じゃかなりのもんだ。
Yeah, bribing Alice was not a good idea.
ホームグラウンドは国外で先代の会長の英国 B 機がたたって一時期は沈みかけてたんだが5年くらい前かね。本拠地をこっちに移してからはご存知の通りだ。会長が息子に移ってからはきちんと持ち直して今や町の名士だろ。ここでもクオンジの名前はそこかしこで目に入る。この学校の建て直し予算の半分は連中からだしな。
Oh, wow. So, oh man, paying tuition and paying rent both go to their pockets. Wow. Despite the oversimplified explanation, Sojiro seemed to not be getting it. With that, Tobimaru decided to give up on trying to explain.
あれだ。想像もできない金持ちってこと。宗の字が働いてる喫茶店だってクオンジが向こうから持ってきたブランドだぜ。今じゃ全国チェーンになっちまったがな。
But don't worry, he's getting the money back from them so he can pay them with the money.
つまりすごく偉いんだね。おかしいな。ならなんであんなに倹約してるんだろう。
Sojiro mumbled incoherently to himself. Tobimaru looked at him with a complex expression on his face, somewhere between envy and heartfelt sympathy.
しかしうまいことやったな、宗十郎。それで本当のところはどうなんだ？男と女が同じ屋根の下にいればやることは一つだろ。
Hey?
案外古いな、飛び丸も。
抜かせ。そのあたりをごまかしてたら男なんざやってらんねえ。
そりゃごもっとも。実を言うと正直な話。
Though Sojiro and Aoko were living together, there was absolutely no chemistry between them. Though that was not to say that living in such close quarters as they did, unintended mishaps did not occur from time to time. But even still,
驚くぐらいそういうことにはなってない。あの屋敷すごく広いし。
everyone was often busy with their own affairs, so there was no opportunity for that sort of thing to happen.
そもそもだな。もし飛び丸だったら、下宿先が同じってことだけで青崎に言い寄る気になるかい？
I'd be scared. I'd be so scared.
いや、ならねえな、そりゃ。
Tobimaro nodded intently, as if he were thinking back over his many ex-relationships.
いや、健全だな。
So wholesome. Oh boy, my precious child, you know nothing. Where the heck is Hosuke?
ああ、健全だろ。
Sojiro gave no more than a quick affirmation to Tobimaru's despondent murmur. He was doing fine, but besides his physical health, it was surely Sojiro's personality that enabled him to maintain any semblance of peace dealing with both Aoko and Alice while living in that mansion.
でも、それとは別の話で、青崎には頭が上がらないんだ。彼女にはもう返せない借りがあってさ。
Sojiro's eyes turned slightly serious as he stared into the fire. Tobimaru felt that there was more to those words than what Sojiro was letting on.
もう返せない借りだ。
Sojiro merely nodded in silence at Tobimaru's inquisitive acknowledgement. And just then, a strange scream pierced through the still silence of the woods like a knife.
なんか聞こえたな。
ああ、木の実だ。
There we go. Sojiro had already stood up before he responded. He bolted to the frozen pond, broke the ice with his broom, and scooped up some frigid water in a bucket and threw it on the fire, all in less than 10 seconds. Then he immediately ran off into the depths of the woods, from where he heard the scream. Tobimaru followed after him in a panicked confusion. Oh, is something serious happening?
この先に何かあるのか？
確か旧校舎が残ってるはずだ。
他には野犬の住処とかそういう嫌な話は？
He's prepared, mountain boy.
はいや、いるとしても鹿かウサギじゃねえか。
なら怖がることもないか。急ごう、飛び丸。
Perhaps because of his time spent growing up in the mountains, Sojiro quickly sprinted over the slippery dead leaves. Tobimaru was not particularly cautious himself, but nevertheless, he could not keep up with Sojiro in here. Before long, Sojiro found himself running alone. When piles of leaves blocked the natural trail, he would sometimes knock them away with both hands, and sometimes expertly slip through them. It was clear that he was used to dealing with this level of nature. After a few minutes, Sojiro arrived at the clearing. The wall of trees had ended. It was an obviously man-made clearing here on the mountainside. In the distance was what looked like an old wooden school building. It was a small, aesthetically pleasing building, no larger than the elementary school, lost in the depths of the winter wilderness.
Kinomi!
Kinomi stood alone in the old school grounds.
なんでしずきまで追いかけてきたん？
A sour expression came over Sojiro's face as Kinomi tilted his head in confusion.
そっちこそどうしたんだ？変な声上げて。
声？いや、そりゃガキ相手に怒鳴ったけどよ。ほら、あのガキだよ。芋持ってるだろ。ぴゃー、中に逃げ込みやがった。
Damn that brat! Kinomi pointed resentfully towards the old school building. There was indeed someone standing at the entrance to the building, just over 300 feet in the distance.
たく、こんな上まで来やがって。いつから子供の遊び場になってんだ、ここ。
Kinomi shrugged his shoulders to signal how little he cared about what the young children did with their time. This place was deep in the woods, but it was not particularly dangerous. Sojiro had run through the woods to get here, but there was also a paved road leading to this spot from outside the woods. Kinomi apparently followed that road to get here.
子供？
Sojiro squinted.
ああ、金髪なんでさっきはちょっと驚いたけどな。外国人の子供ってなんか怖いだろ？
It was indeed quite rare to see a foreigner in a provincial town such as Misaki. Sojiro had never seen a foreigner in person, which made the whole thing even more mysterious.
それで、木の実はなんでここまで？
いや、赤羽たちがよ、ガキに食料奪われたって言うからここまで追いかけてきたんだ。そういうことだから、 二人がかりであのお子様とっちめようぜ。
Let's beat up this child.
怖いことを考えるな、木の実は。
Sojiro could not find it in him to agree with his plan. It seemed unfair to team up against a little child, or
いい
kid.
から帰ろう。あの子こっちを睨んでるじゃないか。それに飛び丸にこんなところ見られたら、冬休み中ずっと山の掃除で終わることになるぞ。
Sojiro took Kinomi by the shoulders and began leading him back to the path he came from. Kinomi cast one last gaze to this old school building before reluctantly following. Huh. That was really random. Just then, Tobimaru appeared, panting and out of breath.
早いな、宗十郎。
Tobimaru could hardly catch his breath. He arrived at about 3 minutes behind Sojiro, despite having a good set of legs on him.
それでどうした？木の実、無事か？
はあ、無事も何も殿下こそどったん。
Kinomi seemed perplexed at Tobimaru's first ever display of concern for him.
なんだそりゃ。てめえ、あれだけの大声を上げておいて、しらばっくれる気か？上で何かあったんだろうが。
I kind of wish they let us hear the scream. That way we could know like what kind of scream it was.
すまない。こっちの早とちりだった。飛び丸は知らないだろうけど、木の実は時々バイト先でも規制を上げる癖があるんだ。
Kinomi looked disapproving as Sojiro nonchalantly shared this insight. This was the first he had ever heard of it.
怪しいな。またよからぬことでも企んでるんじゃないか？
He's too smart. He's too smart.
ないよ。戻って掃除の続きをするぞ、飛び丸。
Sojiro patted Tobimaru on the shoulder a couple of times and started walking. Tobimaru cast a doubtful glare in his direction as he meandered off. He had a feeling that Sojiro was covering for Kinomi somehow.
まさか、旧校舎に火なんてつけてないだろうな。
I'll do it to get the kid out. He stole my potatoes.
誰もしないよ、そんなことは。
Some people would kill for potatoes. Right, Zion? Sojiro kept walking and did not even look back at Tobimaru as he spoke. Tobimaru and Kinomi tilted their heads in confusion as they reluctantly followed the unusually aggressive Sojiro back to their cleaning spot. And so, the special winter cleaning team's activities ended uneventfully. The time was 3 in the afternoon. Upon departing, Kinomi and his crew invited Sojiro to come hang out with them, but he declined politely due to his job at the evening. He had about 2 hours until his shift began. Not quite enough time to do anything fun, but just enough time to have to fill it with something. Sojiro thought about relaxing in a park, somewhere, but quickly changed his mind after remembering how cold it was, even in the city. Not to forget that Aoko handed him those pills in the morning. Aoko was absolutely correct in her prediction. Heading back to the mansion now would just be a waste of time. There was no reason for him to return to the mansion until after his shift at work. Still, Sojiro found himself on the way back anyways. Having grown up deep in the mountains, a little 2-hour walk was really no sweat off his back. Misaki was one of the more quiet residential areas in Misaki. The only thing that really stood out here was Shiro Inazuka. It was a hill that led directly into the woods. The silhouette of the mountains served as a backdrop to the suburbia, silently overshadowing the small human actions of the people who lived there. Even in this modern day of technological progress, the people here were always careful to pay reverence to the nature around them. If that mansion were a shrine, it would not be a haunted house, but a famous tourist attraction.
というより、今更気づいたけど。
The houses around Shiro Inazuka were all magnificent. Sojiro understood as he looked from the bottom of the hill where the rest of the town lived, at the roof of the mansion tucked away in the woods. He understood what Tobimaru was talking about how the Kuonji family who owned that mansion might be one of the richest people in town.
その割に家賃を取るところを見ると、やっぱり嫌われていると見るべきか。
Yeah, they forced me to live there and now I have to pay them for living there. Sojiro began walking towards the mansion with such thoughts simmering in his mind. The feeling of the hard asphalt beneath his feet instead of soft dirt felt lonely and isolating. He walked along the paved road for 10 minutes or so before reaching the iron fence of the wood. Beyond this fence was a private property of the Kuonji family. It was bereft of any awkward no trespassing signs. The tall, overbearing iron fence was more than enough to remind visitors that they were unwelcome there. Sojiro casually pushed on the iron gate. Only 2 days had passed since the end of the final exams, and he had already seemed more than comfortable with the idea of entering the woods alone. The path to the mansion from inside the wood curved and bent like a snake. It took about 15 minutes to reach the mansion on this path. He could have chosen to ignore this long incline and travel in a straight line through the woods, but he would have expended significantly more energy in doing so. No, using the wood path was the sensible option, barring an emergency. Upon entering the foyer, Sojiro heard a conversation coming from the drawing room. It was no doubt Aoko and Alice. Sojiro decided to join them. Ever since the final exams had ended, Aoko and Alice had switched from their daily routine to a more irregular schedule. Aoko would disappear into Alice's room in the west wing of the mansion for a while, where she would remain. And Alice would go into Aoko's room, not to be seen again. Or they would vanish into the corridors leading around to the rear of the mansion, doing who knows what, where Sojiro was most certainly not allowed to enter. They're doing something. Not that he was interested in what they were doing, since Aoko and Alice did not seem to want to include him either, serving both parties nicely. For the time being, the Kuonji estate was pretty peaceful.
Tadaima.
Sojiro quietly opened the door to the drawing room. Even though they tried not to be involved with each other's business, Sojiro made it a habit to greet them. Oh, okay, so they're both still here, okay. I wasn't sure if they'd be in a different room, even though he said he heard voices here. The two girls sat across from him on the sofa. On the table in front of them was a large, extravagantly decorated mirror. Aoko was dressed for the comfort and wearing jeans instead of her usual skirt. In stark contrast, Alice was dressed in her usual all black. Even though the break room from school was well underway, the witch still insisted on wearing black. As Aoko had explained, it was probably because it was too much effort for Alice to wear anything else. Sojiro's thoughts was that he would like to see her wear something different. Aoko and Alice seemed to be in the middle of some sort of dispute. The air in the drawing room was tense. They both ignored his greeting. Alice only briefly looked up at him.
じゃあ、東川の視点は？あそこの柱は白色だし、そう簡単には奪われないでしょ？
ええ。今のところ東川は侵食されていないけど、一つ隣の鈴穂の視点が消された以上、楽観はできないわ。
Are they preparing or
残りの
like...
買い出しは今までより早くなる。
Are they like getting ready for an attack or something? Or trying to stop people from, I guess, activating these sigils, maybe?
そっか。一個釣れれば、あとは芋づる式だもんね。反省したわ。甘く見てたのはこっちの方だった。ここからは、1週間単位の攻防になるわね。
Oh no, it's another fight. The two continued their heated discussion from opposite sides of the table. Aoko neglected to even glance up at Sojiro. Sojiro sensed that she wanted to concentrate on the discussion at hand.
でも解せないな。あの夜に人形を出してくるタイミングといい、隠し方だけは一級品なうちの視点を短期間で特定することといい、こいつ、まず間違いなく市内にアジトを敷いてるわよね。
One thing that they never like went back to was so like Sojiro saw this really threatening person at his job at the pachinko parlor, and we never really got back to that. I thought they would be more relevant.
なのに、なんで結界に異常がないんだろう。三崎市一帯の索敵網はもう100年近く破られたことがないのに。
Aoko bit her nails nervously, while Alice nodded along. It seemed that as though she was wondering the same thing.
母もここの結界には触れなかった。美咲の結界をかいくぐるには、あなたのおじいさんか、それ以上の技量を持つ魔術師でないと難しい。けど、それほどの魔術師なら逆に、気配は隠しきれない。何か特殊な音響法かもしれないわね。ここ数年、新しいサークルの話は聞かないけど。
何？シャーウッドの森？メイキングなら以前、アリスの霧が粉砕したじゃない。
What's making?
あれ以上の音響があるっていうの？
I don't remember the making. Was that the the 7 days of spinning? I always go back to that because I don't really understand what happened.
例えばの話よ。今回の相手はこちら以上の技量を持っているか、こちらの知らない技術を持っているか。どちらにせよ評価を改めるべきね。私たち気づかないうちに追い詰められているのかも。
The two fell silent. Sojiro, after some internal deliberation, decided to break the silence.
や、ただいま。
Aoko finally looked up at him in response to his hesitant declaration.
いいからお風呂に入ってきたら。汚れてるわよ、宗十郎。
Damn, you stink! And with that, Aoko returned her gaze to the mirror. Alice briefly looked up at Sojiro again before also returning her gaze to the mirror. Okay, I'm out. Perhaps feeling at least somewhat satisfied with that his greeting was acknowledged, Sojiro left the drawing room and closed the door behind him. Oh, okay, I wasn't sure if we were gonna go to the POV of the girls now. Aoko was right. His clothes were soiled.
そうだな。
A little.
もったいないけど、確かに。
Sojiro returned to his room, thinking that a bath might actually feel pretty nice in this cold weather, despite not really having broken a sweat at all during the day. Damn! Flexing that off is like, yeah, that was nothing to me. But you should probably be clean if you're going to go work at a restaurant later. Just saying. I'm assuming he's talking about the Mad Bear. That's where he's gonna go to work later. He climbed the stairs from the foyer and up the second flight into the attic. Unlike the other rooms in the mansion, this one had no frills to its decor. It was a little cumbersome to use as a living space, but comfortable enough for Sojiro. Everywhere else in the mansion was a little bit too gaudy for his taste. As far as shelter and a place to sleep went, Sojiro was more than satisfied with his accommodations. There was no electricity in the attic. The only light was that which crept in from a small skylight. Not that Sojiro minded. He was more accustomed to living without electricity than living with it. With only the faint winter light to guide him, he readied a change of clothes and a towel before heading down to the foyer. Despite the magnificent size of the mansion, there was only one bath in the whole building, and not a particularly large one at that. Whoever was the architect here, he or she must not have thought a bath would be so important, or perhaps they were not the bath type. Sojiro descended to the foyer and made his way to the back of the stairs. He knocked on the door to the bath. As expected, there was no answer from the other side. The only other two occupants of the mansion were still talking in the drawing room. After confirming it was unoccupied, Sojiro quietly entered the bathroom. Okay, so no anime bath scene. Even though Sojiro was not aware of it himself, as it was common for him, the only hobby he had acquired since coming down from the mountains was taking a nice relaxing bath. Sojiro had left, but the two girls were still locked in their heated discussion. Needless to say, the topic of their conversation was still that of the outsider mage who had appeared in Misaki City last month. Yep. This was, after all, the problem that had occupied their time before this whole situation with Sojiro arose, dealing with and eliminating the interloper that had set his or her sights on their territory.
今まではおとりにばっかり食いついてたから甘く見てたけど、それも計算づくだったのかしらね。こっちが油断してる隙に本命を一つ奪われた。この相手との戦いはこれからが本番ってことか。
It's just begun. The situation was growing more dire by the day. Until a couple of days ago, the enemy had limited themselves to small skirmishes, but now they had shifted to a full-on offensive. Aoko had two major bounded fields she used for defense. One, the larger of the two, was placed around Misaki City to detect magical energy and magecraft. This was used to observe and monitor visitors from outside the city, and was initially set up by Aoko's ancestors, the administrators of this territory, and had no way to be removed. The other was set up to energize and manage ley lines from within the territory. The 5 sigils carved into the earth made up this standard square-type array, protecting all that laid within its bounds. After some manipulation of the mana flow, the power within was directed to accumulate at the Kuonji estate. That is to say, the bounded field existed to monopolize the magical energy within Misaki City. There are 5 sigils in total, with the Kuonji state located in the center. If all 5 sigils were forcibly removed, Aoko's jurisdiction over this territory would be in title only. Without the power of the land to back them up, they would be forced to fight back against their invaders on equal ground, with only their own innate abilities to protect them. The only reason Alice and the inexperienced Aoko were able to defend this territory so far was because of these two fields. The dragnet that notified Aozaki of any threats was also her lifeline. But this time, their enemy had somehow slipped through the cracks and was running rampant. This was what the girls had to face up to.
どちらにせよ時間の問題ね。視点がすべて潰されたら、いよいよここでの籠城になるけど。いいの？青子。
ん？別にいいんじゃないの？アリスの言う通り、残りの視点を消されるのは時間の問題なんだし。
So we have to get prepared for a big fight. Eeh.
そりゃ敵のアジトを発見できれば同じだけど、それは絶対必要ってわけでもないでしょ？視点を消されても、私にはあんまり関係ないし。
They can just do that. I don't care.
何より、館の守りはあんたがいる限り万全だしね。
So much faith.
あっちの方からやってきてくれるなら、それこそ飛んで火にいるよ。他に心配事なんてないでしょ。
そうね。敵が一人だけなら、その時は鏡の範囲をここに集中させて戦場にすればいい。私たちにとってその方が有利だったわ。
Alice touched the mirror on the table with her pale fingers. The surface of the mirror rippled like water. Whoa. The mirror was another projector of Misaki City. Whoops. Sorry. I said projector because on the screen it looks like it's projecting something. The mirror was another protector of Misaki City, separate from Aozaki's bounded fields. More accurately, it was a ploy that existed only to protect Alice Kuonji rather than Misaki City itself. It generated a thick fog and acted as an invitation to any visitors, drawing them into its board game-like world. Alice referred to it only as the mirror, but it was known to her friends as a mirror of slumber, and Sojiro was so close to falling into the mirror several times. This was a magecraft that Alice Kuonji wielded. Within the rippling surface of the mirror, an image of a castle began to form, and also a lush forest, a field, and a river. Aoko stared at the mirror in silence, before suddenly jumping to her feet on the sofa.
そうと決まれば、あとは行動あるのみね。出かけるわよ、アリス。とにかく現場を見ないことには始まらない。
Alice let out a tired sigh in response to Aoko's determination, then gave the mirror a gentle caress. The sound of dripping water filled the room. The mirror began to consume the table in a thick fog with a single caress from Alice.
順番に回るのなら、帰るのは朝になるわね。
まあまあ、そう億劫がらないで。ところでアリス、火の五芒星の退去ってこうだっけ？
A fire pentagram banishment. Huh. Aoko traced a shape in the air with her fingers. She mimed the star shape starting from the top, moving down and to the right, and from there to the upper left, and so on.
そろそろ壊すこと以外も覚えないとダメよ、青子。
I love how they have to explain like how to draw a star. Alice sat up from the sofa, letting out a heavy sigh. Look at her, she's pouting so much like They both took their coats from their hangers and left the drawing room.
失礼ね。私だって日々成長してるわよ。この間のおまじないだってちゃんと成功したんだから。
おまじない？
簡単な暗示の呪文。
Mesmerize?
ほら、アリスが教えてくれた軽く弱く、うまく早く、チクタクチクタク、急げや急げってやつ。
That's the one that she cast on Sojiro to make him not feel fear, I think. When they started playing that song. The really good one.
それ、本当？
ほんともほんと。後で総重量に聞いてください。
Alice swallowed her words, clearly displeased. She lightly stopped herself in time to realize that it was not worth the effort to take issue with it.
けど留守中その彼はどうするの？
大丈夫でしょう。アリスの西館と開かずの間に入らなきゃ即死するようなことは。
Aoko responded hastily as she opened the door to the foyer. And as soon as she did, just as quickly as Alice's doubts had gotten stuck in her throat, Aoko suddenly froze, unable to speak. Oh, the scars.
ですって。
For a moment, Aoko wasn't sure who was standing before her. She could only stare at the glinting rays of sunlight creeping into the room as she reeled from the shock. It's the opposite. They caught him naked or half naked. Her mind was completely blank. It was as if she had woken up from a nap, or a jack-in-the-box had just opened in her face. Sojiro was probably the only person who truly knew how long that dumbfounded silence went on.
あんた、こんなところで何してるのよ、一体。
Yeah, why are you changing there? Aoko had finally found her voice. Alice is also kind of surprised.
何って着替えてるんだけど。
Sojiro's response was matter of fact. He offered no explanation as to why he was changing in the foyer and not the bathroom. Okay, so if you look at his model, he has a lot of scars on his arm, his left arm, and probably more on his his neck we can't see. Just, he's so dumb. Aoko was too shocked to read him the riot act. Sojiro was putting a shirt on after presumably just getting out from the bath. His neck was wrapped in bandages, and he was completely shirtless. His hair was wet, but his skin wasn't glistening from the steam of hot water. He must have washed himself with nothing more than cold water. Though shocked as to why anyone would do such a thing in this cold weather, she decided to let it slide. He took a cold bath? In the winter? Oh! The source of her silent stupor was simply his body. She's after his body now, oh my god. Until now, she had only seen him as harmless. Without his clothing to hide him, however, he was more fit than she had ever imagined. Yeah, he's looking good. For a rough mountain upbringing where one's body and strength meant survival, perhaps he was even a bit underdeveloped. On top of that,
それ、傷跡なの？
Aoko asked cautiously. Sojiro followed her gaze. He had something that looked like a burn scar on his arm. It was random in appearance, nothing like Aoko's magic crest with its ordered patterns.
ああ、これか。ずいぶん前に野犬の群れに襲われて噛みつかれたんだ。命があっただけでも幸運だから、傷跡ぐらいはご愛嬌だ。
Did they get his neck too? A long time ago, he must have been talking about when he was a child. Though his life was saved, it was apparent that he hadn't been able to receive proper treatment deep in the mountains where he lived. Those scars were proof of that. Considering that it had happened so many years ago, it was likely that they would never fade. If only for an instant, Aoko thought that the wild scars left on his skin suited his lean body perfectly.
確かに、あまり気持ちのいいものじゃないな。自分の部屋で着替えるべきだった。
You could have changed in the bathroom. It wasn't even hot. You took a cold bath. Sojiro sounded slightly ashamed as he put on his shirt, looking at Aoko standing there in cold silence. The two girls had no response. Sojiro headed for the stairs to go back to his room.
ちょっと待って、宗十郎。
Oh, he's got a shirt on. Sojiro stopped and turned around.
なんていうか。
She's freaking out like, oh my god, he's hot. Aoko looked away awkwardly, apparently not knowing why she stopped him herself.
なんか青崎らしくない。さっきから変だけど、熱でもあるんじゃないのか？あれから満足に寝てないだろう、二人とも。
He was of course referring to the final exams. From Sojiro's perspective, the amount of work Aoko put in seemed strange.
熱なんてないったら。そうじゃなくて、どうしてこんなところで着替えてたのよ、あんたは。
Yeah. I love this so much. Aoko was doing her best to keep up appearances. But For some reason, Sojiro was hesitant to say too much more.
それは言いづらいんだが、下着の管理はきちんとした方がいいと思う。どっちだかは知らないけど。
Ah, okay. Alice, who had been completely silent behind Aoko, couldn't resist responding to that statement. Although she hadn't wanted to get involved, this was something that she couldn't ignore.
言っておくけど、それは青子だから。
Not me, not me. Alice's response was quick and to the point.
洗濯の当番は確かに私だったけど。
Aoko seemed like she was just holding back on going critical.
とにかく、もうすぐアルバイトだから着替えてくる。
Oh my god, that was totally Alice's. And she's like, oh, you bitch. Sensing that those two were probably going to get into an argument, Sojiro took his chance to leave. And with that, Sojiro briskly left the scene.
アリス。
とりあえず、片付けてくる。
Alice calmly walked into the bathroom. A few minutes later, just as the two were about to head out and fulfill their duties as a mage, Aoko remembered something that she wanted to ask.
そうだアリス。傷ってあれのこと？
あれは傷跡じゃないわ。
Or were they what? I need to know.
だって、あんなにも誇らしいもの。
Aoko agreed. What had impressed her the most about those scars was how he treated them simply as a part of his past, absent of any regret. Aoko wouldn't have gone so far as to say that he was proud, but it seemed her instincts had been correct. That and one more thing.
でも一つだけはっきりしたわ。それじゃあ、不覚にも見惚れてたのは私一人じゃなかったってことよね、アリス。
Aoko smiled wryly at Alice, like a child who knew that they were doing something they shouldn't do with their friends. Alice was trying to ignore her as best as she could. She looked away without saying a word. Aoko let out a satisfied snicker and began walking towards the front door.
じゃ、行こうか。まずはあの公園からでいいでしょ。今回の件はあそこから全てが始まったわけだし。
Back to the park we go. She was talking about the local park in Misaki. The place where they had run into the enemy puppets, and, of course, where their involvement with Sojiro had all begun. Oh, look at Alice. Now her hair is flowing, and she's standing in place. How is she doing that? Early the next morning. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. Most people were still in their beds sleeping. Although some 24-hour convenience stores had opened last year, Misaki Town was still very much living in the good old days of early 80s. Even the tofu shop in the shopping district, known for opening earlier than anywhere else, didn't open until 6. But this was the late 80s, during the latter half of Japan's bubble economy. Okay, we're in the late 80s. Kind of forgot about that. It was a time when the metropolitan area never slept. Those in the countryside, however, remained in the past. The homes were blanketed in silence, the streets were empty of commuters, and not a single automobile could be heard. The sun was just barely peeking over the horizon. The town would still be asleep for at least an hour longer before it began waking up. It was during this time that someone stepped onto the Kuonji estate. Wait, they make it sound like it's not them. Sojiro was working the late shift during the winter vacation and had just came home. What? What kind of late shift? You're working until 5 a.m.? He moved quietly through the drawing room so that he wouldn't wake up Aoko and Alice, who were presumably still asleep. Presumably. The Kuonji estate had a few established rules. One of those rules forbade more Japanese tea. No, you can't do tea anymore. You suck. This new rule had only came in effect 3 days prior. It was proposed after Alice saw Sojiro drinking green tea in the kitchen after dinner one night. Oh. Looking back on it, the decision had been made rather abruptly. She's like, how dare you handle tea that way? That single gasp of surprise was all Alice said. She grasped her head as if she was battling the most vicious of migraines, called for Aoko, and then made the decision to ban all Japanese teas from the mansion. By some miracle, Aoko managed to negotiate and keep Sojiro's privileges to barley tea during the summer.
だいたいイギリス産だって初めはグリーンティーが主流だったじゃない。
Aoko had clearly hit a nerve with this argument. Aoko stared at Alice, fairly certain why she was so taken aback by Sojiro's actions. Sacrilege. How dare he.
そこまで嫌がらなくてもな。お茶はなんだって美味しいのに。
Sojiro grumbled to himself while sipping his hot green tea. Oh, he gets some good music, like the happy music. He didn't realize that Alice was upset because he had poured his green tea into a teacup meant for black tea. Oh, it was the cup! In Sojiro's defense, this was the only teacup that Alice had given him permission to use. At any rate, the early morning was his to enjoy. This was his moment to relax with Japanese tea set he had smuggled in. He didn't use this time to read books or watch TV. He just drank his tea and gazed fondly at the garden, or rather, the dense woods outside. Sojiro simply sat, relaxed, and let his mind wander. About an hour had passed. Just as he was beginning to feel refreshed, he heard the sounds of coming from the foyer. He knew it was Aoko and Alice talking, so he rushed to hide his teacup, teapot, and tea leaves in the kitchen. Hiding the contraband was easy enough, considering just how many unused shelves there were in the kitchen. Sojiro was perturbed by how they wasted the potential of such a splendid kitchen. Now I think about it, we never got a shot of the kitchen.
早いのね、宗十郎。
Aoko spoke as she took off her white down jacket. Next to her, Alice silently took off her black coat.
いや、今帰ってきたんだ。天城浜の食品工場に深夜のパートで入ることになって、その帰り。
Wait, so he's had a shop at a kombini. He's volunteered at the church. He works at Mad Bear. He's also worked at a fish place, a fishmonger. He also worked at the amusement park. Now he's working at a food factory. That's 6. There might even be more. I'm not sure. I mean, he left one of them, the kombini. But damn. Sojiro stuck his head out from the kitchen and gestured that he was about to put on some water to boil. Alice tilted her head slightly at him. It wasn't that she thought his gesturing was funny or anything.
天城浜から
Alice glanced up at the clock in the drawing room and her expression darkened.
どうしたの、アリス。
Aoko asked this from her comfortable seat at the sofa.
別に
Alice responded indifferently before finally sitting down as well.
宗十郎、砂糖は一杯だけだからね。
Yeah, just make me all the stuff, please. Aoko yelled her matter-of-course request into the kitchen. Sojiro didn't respond, but it was an affirmative silence. This was the result of 2 entire nights worth of cramming that Alice knew nothing about.
アリスは？
Oh, that's a good point. She did 2 all-nighters with him so he can pass the second and third day of exams.
私はミルクだけでいいけど。
I thought she was gonna be like, he can't make my tea. I'll go in there and make it myself. I don't want him to ruin it. Alice responded out of obligation.
了解、ミルクティーだね。
For some reason, Sojiro dutifully answered Alice's request.
ま、いいけど、いちいち突っ込んでたらキリがないし。
She's like, well, fine, fine. I'd rather have it this way.
それより珍しいじゃない。アリスがティーバッグのお茶飲むなんて。
今日は疲れたから、たまには。
It seemed that she had allowed herself to accept another's kindness, at least for today.
ふーん。ま、いいか。それより宗十郎。あんた、さっきお菓子のこと言わなかった？
え？別に言ってないぞ、そんな。
そう。ならいいんだけど。
Wait, said something about his job? The two were conversing over a distance of 4 yards. Alice decided to add her opinion to the conversation.
しずきくんがおかしなことを言わない日はないと思うわ、私。
Just throw that in there to jab at him. Her quiet tone was luckily low enough that Sojiro couldn't hear her from the kitchen.
そりゃそうだけど、今ちょっと変だったでしょ？いや、何が引っかかったのかまではわからないんだけどさ。
そうね。 会話自体は普通だったけれど、内容を考えてみるとどこかおかしいわね。
Okay, now I gotta go back and see. Give me a second. No, I just got home actually. I started working the late shift at the food factory over in Amagihama. That was kind of it. I don't really know what they're referring to. Aoko became gradually more irritated as she failed to grasp what had just been odd about the conversation. Just then, Sojiro appeared holding a tray with a teacup for each of one of them.
何を話してるんだ？単に新しいアルバイトを始めただけだろ。
He put the cups down on a black table without making even the slightest sound. Alice couldn't complain about how proper his job as a waiter had made him. Oh. Wait, he's a waiter now? In all the jobs that I just listed, I mean, I guess he could be a waiter at the restaurant too, but it didn't sound like he was doing waiting stuff. Is this a different job? While she didn't say anything out loud, she did nod in his direction to show some gratitude. Aoko, however,
天城浜だっけ？あそこってスタジアムがあるところでしょ？ツアーの会場になるから時々行くけど。
the student council president, a supposed model student, loved rock bands. Aoko was secretly obsessed with a number of bands and used to travel way out of town just to see them perform live when she was in middle school. Of course, this was a world that Sojiro was far from familiar with.
それよりまた新しいバイト始めたんだ。そんなに働いてどうする気なのよ、宗十郎は。
These two monsters abducted me and then charged me rent.
ああ、よく聞いてくれたね。本人の名誉のために名前は伏せるけど、誰かさんと誰かさんが俺の少ない収入を無慈悲に奪っているから働く先を増やしたんだ。
Yes, he brought it up. He's like, all my money goes back to them, even though they might be my boss. Maybe. Alice owns a lot of companies, or their family, I don't know. This was as much resistance as Sojiro was able to give. Aoko lifted her teacup with her mouth as she was completely oblivious to Sojiro's monologue.
それは大変ね。
That sounds rough, buddy. Alice said this as she set her teacup down quietly. There were some things she just did not understand. Aoko had to hold back her laughter as she looked at Alice and Sojiro.
言った自分が未熟だった。
Sojiro's shoulders fell as he said this. He took a sip of his black tea, still unsure about the taste.
まあ、アルバイトが多いって分かってくれるだけでいいか。そういったわけだから、冬休み中は夜も留守にする。例の薬はアルバイト先で飲むしかないんだけど。
I wonder if someone's gonna steal his pills at work or something.
ああ、それなら心配いらないわ。もうあれはやめたから。
Oh, okay. This plot device will go out the window.
いちいち作るのも面倒だし、もっとしずきくんに
Oh no!
つけてきたの。
No, she brought it back with a different plot device. Oh my god, look at it! Aoko had a huge, ominous grin on her face. She put her hands into her jacket pocket and pulled out a little paper bag. It was a small circular object about 20 inches in diameter, wrapped up nicely like a present.
はい、これは入居祝い。これからはそれをつけておくのよ、宗十郎。
Oh my god. Oh my god, the way she said that. Is it a collar? Is he gonna be a dog now? Sojiro opened the paper bag. Inside was a white belt. But it wasn't a belt for putting around your waist to keep your pants up. To put it... I knew it! To put it as clearly as possible, it was a collar.
青子。
She's like, are you serious? Alice's expression darkened at this turn of events. But it wasn't clear whether it was her friend's insidiousness or sympathy for Sojiro that concerned her.
どう？気に入った？
Oh my gosh, she's... I knew it! Aoko was clearly a little crazy. At least she wasn't totally serious. It was obvious that it was at least half a prank just to see how Sojiro would react. But, oh, he's just gonna put it on. Sojiro was solemnly considering the collar that he had just been gifted.
意味はつかみかねるけど、こういうものを人からもらうのは
It's gonna backfire. Aw, this is such a nice gift. He actually sounded like this would be a happy memory for him. Alice narrowed her eyes at what just transpired.
けどこれは何に使うんだ？
簡単よ。金庫寺と同じで飼い犬が主人に逆らうと首を絞めるの。あっちは頭につけてたけど、それよりは首のがマシでしょ？
He's gonna be journey to the west. Why am I going west? Sojiro grimaced when he finally understood Aoko's mean-spirited gift. He really wanted to ask her what kind of person comes up with such an evil idea.
つまり秘密をばらしたり逆らったりしたら首が絞まると。やっぱり熱でもあるんじゃないのか、青崎は。
Are you sure you're okay in the head?
あら、首輪はいや？せっかく宗十郎に似合いそうなものを見つけたのに。
She's so... Aoko still had an evil grin on her face. But Sojiro had a surprising response to this gift that Aoko had clearly gotten as a prank.
それもそうか。毎日毒を飲むよりはマシだし、このベルト自体いいものだし。うん、気に入った。ありがとう、青崎。
Reverse Uno card. Thank you for this gift. He spoke 100% truthfully. Aoko's face contorted in disbelief, and she could only mumble as if he was serious. She's like, I can't believe that worked. I can't believe he's... No!
人の行為はどんなものだって嬉しいよ。それに、それが青崎ならなおさらだ。
And with that, Sojiro put on the belt around his neck. He placed it over the bandages that were already there.
こんな感じかな。きついけどそのうち慣れるだろう。
Oh my god. Despite his words, on to the contrary, Sojiro tugged at the belt uncomfortably and adjusted it. It was such a perverse scene that even Aoko's face was as red as a beet, even though this had all been her idea. Perhaps it was because it had gave her such a clear reminder of the scars she had seen the other day before.
よし。止め方はこれでいいのか。
Oh, wait. Yeah, I think he does have it on. That doesn't look like his normal bandages. It does look like a collar. She's like, oh. Aoko retreated guiltily as Sojiro came closer for her to check at the fit of his new collar.
黙ってちゃわからないのに。いいよ、アリスに聞くから。
She's like, get away from me, don't. Sojiro shifted his gaze from Aoko to Alice. Alice stared intently at Sojiro wearing his new collar and said,
ロックね。青子、趣味に走りすぎよ。
She could not have put it any more bluntly. He was like, oh no.
いや、やかましい。そんなんじゃない。も
A
う
little
いい。
pet now.
とにかくそういうことよ。これからはその首輪が薬の代わりよ。せいぜい秘密を守ることね。
I have a feeling that collar has nothing on it. It's just she didn't expect him to actually agree to this. Aoko was oddly emphatic as she spoke before stomping off towards the hallway.
それと、これからお昼まで仮眠を取るけど、くだらないことで起こしたら殺すから。
Aoko slammed the door behind her as she left the drawing room. Sojiro stared in amazement.
なんで青崎はいつもいきなり怒るんだろう。
He murmured to himself, forgetting that Alice was standing right there in front of him.
しずきくんには悪意が通じないからでしょう。気にする必要はないわ。
悪意って今のが？
What are you talking about? Alice looked up at Sojiro's innocent response. There was a glimmer in her eyes that showed surprise at her current actions.
なんでもないから気にしないで。
With that terse reply, she returned to her usual expressionless self. There was no use explaining Aoko's feelings. Aoko bought that collar for the sole purpose of annoying Sojiro and causing mischief. When things didn't turn out the way she had planned, her conscience got the better of her. Sojiro mistakenly thought that Aoko was angry at him, when in reality, she was only angry at herself. Alice didn't bother telling Sojiro all these heartwarming details though. Not because it was too much work, just because she was never one to have meaningless conversation. That was how she had been raised.
しずきくんはこれからどうするの？
Alice suddenly changed the topic. Sojiro thought for a while before replying.
夕方までゆっくりするよ。ここのところ忙しすぎた。せっかくだからテレビも見ていたいし、お昼には青崎を起こさないといけないだろ。
そう。なら静かにしていて。
Alice let out a gentle sigh and rose to her feet. Just keep it quiet. Sojiro would understand exactly what she meant by those words in just a few minutes. Okay. Well, I think that's enough for today. That was... that last part was really funny, but also really cute because she had no idea it would turn out that way. I'm glad this living accommodation is working. Now that we have like the three of them together, living together, it's really fun to see their antics. And honestly, they bounce off really well, especially with Sojiro's like innocent demeanor and, you know, just not knowing a lot of things. Aoko's like, well, sadistic personality, but also her intellect in, you know, just doing everything in general. And Alice's very emotionless personality as well. Everything just kind of meshes together kind of well, and it makes for a good comedy act. But I don't know how long this chapter is, but I'm gonna stop here for today. We'll continue with the story next time. Until then, I will be seeing you. See ya!